Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to the ECM podcast. I'm Caroline Fontanieu, and I'm very happy to host this series that will take you behind the scenes of new music on ECM Records. In this new episode, I'm meeting Fred Hersch to talk about the new album Febles, Fables and Ferns, recorded in 1988 with Mick Goodrick. We talked about connection, memories, conversation in music, and so much more. We're celebrating the release of Feebles, Fables and Fern. It's fun to pronounce that title. It's a little play on sounds.
Yes, very much so. Much like Mick, very playful guy.
That was his style?
Yeah, he was very, in his way, kind of impish and, sparkling and funny. He has some funny tune titles. Summer Band Camp is the most memorable. But yeah, he was a very bright bulb.
We're talking about Mick Goodrick that passed away a couple of years ago, but you recorded this album that we're releasing today, but you recorded it in 1988. Can you tell me, Fred, the story, the context of this recording? You were friends, you were collaborators, you were already working together. What was the context?
Well, in the 80s, I was flying back and forth to Boston to teach at New England Conservatory from New York, where I live. I ended up on some kind of pickup gigs with Mick. Always liked him. And, guitar and piano is a hard thing to negotiate. It's very easy to get in each other's way. And, he was really easy to play with. And I had a recording studio in the 80s, a little place. One of the last projects we did there, I asked him to come down from Boston and spend an afternoon and just do a duo record. And we recorded about 2 hours worth of music, direct to 2-track. I didn't have the kind of connections then that I have now to say, we could, sell it to blah, blah, it just sort of sat. And when he passed away a couple of years ago, his executor, David Lee, reached out to me and said, Mick really liked that album, and could you listen to it again? And maybe we'll put it on Bandcamp. And so I listened to it again, and I listened all 2 hours, and I thought it was really good. And so
You were already working with ECM?
Yes, and I made a quick sequence of about 40 minutes of music. And then I said to David, well, I need to run this by Manfred. He doesn't want to just have, where did that record come from? And so I just sent it to Manfred just to see what, if he was okay with it. And a couple of days later, he says, we want to put this out. So that's, for Mick, the best possible result. I think Guitar World is going to be very interested in this. He made very few recordings, a very modest guy, but he influenced or taught or mentored, Pat Metheny, John Scofield, Bill Frisell, Julian Lage, Wolfgang Mutzspiel, everybody. He was the guitar whisperer. And I'm just glad that this will come out, and I think the, piano sound is not, an ECM piano sound, but it's very nice. And the music is, the ensemble playing, I think, is the highlight. The deep listening that goes on between us is, to me, the highlight. And, I'm very happy that it's coming out.
You have a tradition of duo recordings, and Mick had some history with ECM because of Gary Burton and, but you said that you had played a few shows together before recording?
Well, they were in the context of being side people to a flutist named Jamie Baum.
Because it sounds like you've been playing together for years. When you listen, that's what you're talking about, the togetherness. It's just like, it feels like it's flowing and there's, I'm talking about your tradition of duo recordings because this is an exercise that you know pretty well, and you also recorded with other guitar players as well. You did duo with Bill Frisell or Julian Lage, but it's not because someone is used to do something that it's that easy with everyone. However, with Mick, it sounds like you really are connected. Was it the feeling that was happening in the studio, and did it take time to get to that point, or was it like from the get-go like this?
Well, this recording was the first time that we had played duo. We'd always played
Amazing.
in a quintet or a quartet. And I knew it would be great. Like I used to play with Bill Frisell in the early 80s when he was living in New York. And when we did our duo album, I went out to Seattle and we rehearsed his music and my music. But at the beginning, we played a couple standards. And then we got to
Mhm.
the studio and we said, that's the best stuff, So, and we'd never played duo before. So guitar and piano is a tricky animal, you know. And both Mick and to extent Julian, I mean, they can play a lot of stuff behind me, but it's all correct. There's no, I don't feel they're getting in the way. And sometimes it just sounds like one big instrument.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it, but I mean, the connection is not a given always between two people. And here it feels like it was pretty natural. The connection was pretty natural. So good kudos to you to have this feeling and just like offer to come to the studio and record together because I'm sure there are, I mean, we're not going to name names, but I'm sure there are surprises sometimes where you're like, hey, let's work on something together. And then you realize that in the studio, the vibe is like super off or something, no?
Yeah, I mean, I love duos. I mean, it allows me to use the whole piano and to create texture and be a big drum set. And, very little was said between us. There were a couple of tunes that we tried a few times that just didn't bake. But, as we are in 2026, I think I'm hoping shorter albums become the norm,
Mm.
38
Mm.
minutes. First of all, you can cut them in half and get a beautiful LP, but also people's attention spans are not what they were.
True.
And one thing, like in a live album, I think it can be longer because, that's the nature of a live album.
Yeah.
But this feels very concentrated and just the right length and I think the right shape.
Yeah, it's seven delicious songs. It's candies, and it feels great.
Yeah, and the open pieces are also special. They felt like I just said, okay, let's just do five improvisations. You start one, and then I'll start the next one. And that's all that was said.
Did you pick the Swallow song and the Johnny Green songs? Like, did you suggest those, or they came up naturally, or what happened with those? The
Yeah,
Malvern one.
there was really not much said. It was like slate, start, do the track. That was that. In several cases, we started with the improvisation and had the melody at the end. Sometimes, we had, reverse. Yeah, I think both of us think compositionally,
Hmm.
you when we're improvising, that it's a piece. It's not a series of choruses, something that tells some sort of story. I think, I feel that that's pretty evident.
The heart song is your heart song. It's the one that we heard in different recordings after that.
Well, that's been recorded a number of times.
Yeah. Is it the first time that it was recorded?
No, I've recorded it with a quintet. I've recorded it solo. With the,
Trio.
yeah, with the lyrics by Norma Winston. A number of singers have recorded it. And the genesis of that tune was when I wrote it, I was playing a lot with horn players and playing a lot in E flat and B flat and F and C minor and those horn keys. And I
Hmm.
thought, I want to just write something with all the happy keys, D, G, E, A, and B. And so that's what I did. And the whole tune came from the very first introduction vamp, the very beginning. And it just sort of came out, these, shifting happy colors. And yeah, I knew Mick would kill it, so I sent that ahead to him and he killed it.
How does it feel to look back and to listen back to something that was recorded 40 years ago? Do you recognize yourself? Do you feel like you've changed a lot? How does it feel? And also, what look do you have on your younger self?
Well, of course, I recognize myself. I had a lot of energy, for sure. My left hand has gotten extremely more evolved, but that happened really just a couple years later. I recorded a couple of truly contrapuntal tracks. I'm not sure that anybody was doing that back then. And it was something that I was evolving, but it wasn't quite there yet. And also, well, on a song like Heart Song, it's not that I would play that song differently now. I
Mhm.
play all of them differently,
Yeah.
but I feel good about the playing. Yeah, I think the kind of more orchestral style that I was already playing back then, and this idea of being piano as drum set, I think that was there. I think a lot of things were there, but in 37 years, I hope I've evolved.
Of course you have. But I don't know, there are people who work in seasons, and sometimes it's difficult to recognize an artist from one season to another. I'm not only talking about music, I can talk about like paintings, and there's always an evolution, but listening to this album a lot and going back to your more recent recordings, including some things that are not out yet, but hopefully soon on ECM. I just recognize this. Of course, there's evolution, but the energy and the joy and the light is something very specific to you. And even though you went through seasons, there is something that feels still very recognizable. And I think that's great news. It's not the case for everyone, I think.
I think maybe I'm an example of somebody who's been kind of doing the same thing for a long time, but hopefully getting better at it and collaborating, in ways that stretch me a little bit, like Enrico Rava or, many others that I've done. It's kind of interesting that on the Enrico Rava album, that's where I first met Manfred Eicher. And then he said, let's do something. And then I said, let's do a solo in Lugano, and then that happened, and then he heard the trio in Munich, and then that happened, and then he heard this, and this happened. It's been so organic the way that I've been introduced into the ECM family.
I was just gonna talk about the Rava album because that was, as you said, your first album on ECM, and there's something very special in what a duo recording allows to get out of ourselves. And I remember the conversation we had for this very podcast with Enrico and yourself, talking about how the interaction, whether it's musical, but also on the human level and the humor and what we like to eat and the way we're acting with other people in one room, all of this allows to channel things between each other. And yeah, that's the magic of the duo. And you recorded so many duos. This exercise with the guitar is not the easiest, but are there dream duos or people who are not here anymore that you wish you had recorded duos with?
Sure, I mean, Sonny Rollins, I would have a long list of dream duos, Wayne Shorter. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
but my bucket list is pretty full. I think I've done kind of what I would have liked to do. Maybe there will be another collaboration, and maybe that will come from me, or maybe it'll come from Manfred. I don't know. I feel like when you're playing in a duo with musicians who are alert and also playing at a master level, it's pretty easy. You don't have to say much. Deep listening, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the main thing that makes anything work.
Yeah. Not everyone is really good at that, but you are. When you said the guitar whisperer, is that a nickname that you made up?
Yeah, I just thought maybe I heard it, but I think I just sort of made it up.
Yeah, that's really what it was for a lot of guitar players. I want to take a second to talk about education because Mick's career was very focused on teaching and education and mentoring other guitar players. And you also, it's a big part of your life forever. Do you still teach? Do you still enjoy doing this? What does it teach you?
Yeah, I mean, I taught at schools for, I don't know, the better part of 40 years
Yeah.
on and off. I don't teach at any schools anymore other than the odd master class, but I have some very gifted students that I enjoy, private students, and sometimes somebody will hit me up and I'll say, that's possible, but, can you send me some examples of your playing? Because I want to see if we're, compatible or if somebody that I think I can really work with. I don't teach basics. I want to give people what they can't get in a YouTube video or a textbook or by transcribing, a lot having to do with sound and approach the piano and touch, but also other artistic matters, and the super brilliant pianists that I've taught over the years who have big careers. I mean, I knew it from the moment I heard them
Yeah.
that they were special. And part of me was like, what am I going to teach them? But I think I helped them, maybe save them a step and mentored them as well. And, I was taught a lot by people, but on the bandstand. I think it's an opportunity to give something back. And look, jazz language has changed dramatically. I mean,
Yeah.
the contemporary jazz piano language is very different from what I play in general. Sometimes I feel old-fashioned or, like a dinosaur. The level of technique and just crazy musicianship. Jim Hall, on his business card, it said, Jim Hall, I don't play fast, I don't play loud. Feel like on my business card, it'd be Fred Hersch, I play 251. You know, I I think that would be that,
That's
a
very
little,
reductive. That's very reductive. I
but
disagree.
it's very, it's a joke, but not a joke, I mean, I'm still playing tunes and, uh,
So you think that the younger generations are playing more and better and faster and like what is it you think?
it's just, we're in the post-jazz school world, and I was not a jazz school kid. So I think it's just different now.
Yeah. You never done learning anyway. Like a couple weeks ago, I called you and you texted me like, I call you back because I'm about to have a lesson. So you still take lessons too, right?
I do take a lesson once in a while with a classical pianist in New York who can be very helpful. Yeah, well, and I learned a lot from my teacher of 35 years, Sophia Rosoff, and I try to pass some of those things on in my own way as well.
I want to end this with a question that I like to ask sometime in this podcast. And I think I asked you in the past for other projects, but obviously it changes depending on the music. Is there a way you would like this music to be heard, or is there a way you think that this album should be listened to that would be ideal condition for it? Some people would prefer listening to it in a car in the rain, or some other people would like to have it while running 10K in a park. Is there a specific condition that you think that this album would be great to listen to?
Well, I mean, my ideal listen is sitting on a sofa in front of a good stereo. That's kind of, I mean, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do any live gigs. So I think that gives the music the most respect. And hopefully in 40 minutes, we'll tell you a story, and it'll be sort of like a sonic film of some kind. I think, that's the way that I like to listen to music the best.
Fred Hersch about his new duo album Febles, Fables and Ferns, recorded in 1988 with Mick Goodrick on ECM Records. Thank you for joining, choosing, and listening to our ECM podcast. This episode was mixed and edited by Lucas Desmottes. I'm Caroline Fontagneux, and I look forward to sharing more music with you in the next episode.